One of my obsessive traits is that I need to keep a power rankings for just about anything in my life. Grocery stores, restaurants, movies, pocket snacks, condiments. And near the top of that list for condiments sits chimichurri, a beautifully verdant, vinegary, and versatile sauce that is the star of these chimichurri rice bowls. This is a simple and straightforward meal prep recipe that will get you in and out of the kitchen in no time with a fridge full of meals for your week. Let me show you how to make it. We're going to start by preparing some rice. You're going to need 2 cups or 300 grams of cooked rice for the final dish. I make 2 cups of dry rice just because I always like to have extra in the fridge. 1 cup of dry rice will make between 2 and 3 cups of cooked rice depending on what type of rice you use. Next, you're going to take 2 medium sweet potatoes or 500 grams worth and cut them into a medium to a large dice. You can peel these first if you wish, but there's no real reason to. If there's any gross parts on the outside that make me feel weird, I just cut those away. Place them into a large bowl and drizzle over half of a tablespoon or 7.5 grams of oil, and then sprinkle over salt and pepper to your liking. Give this a toss to make sure all of the oil is coating the potatoes, and then we're going to spread it out on a large sheet pan and roast it in the oven. It's not a bad idea to coat this sheet pan with a bit of oil first to prevent any stickage. If you have cooking spray, that works best. I didn't have any today, so I just rubbed some oil in with a paper towel. We're going to roast these at 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 218 Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes, tossing halfway through. Next, we're going to prepare the broccoli. You can air fry this or roast it. I'm going to use the air fryer, so take 1 pound or 454 grams of frozen broccoli and place it into your air fryer or on a sheet pan to roast. Air fry these at 400 Fahrenheit or 204 Celsius for 8 to 12 minutes, or place them into the oven with your potatoes and roast for probably about 20. Now for the good stuff. Let's make the chimichurri. We're going to need 25 grams or 1/4 of a cup of packed cilantro. I like to cut this up into smaller pieces just to help out the food processor. And we need the same amount of parsley, 25 grams or 1/4 of a cup of packed parsley. In addition to our herbs, we're going to need 3 to 4 cloves or 15 grams of garlic, as well as 1 small shallot or 15 grams worth. You probably don't need to chop these up before putting them in the food processor. It will probably handle it fine, but I like to do it just for assurance. At some point around now in the cooking process, it will be time to toss your potatoes and the broccoli. For some reason, the broccoli that I used this day had lots of ice on the outside, and you can see all the water that it released in the air fryer. This is going to prevent it from browning, so you want to drain that away. The same will go if you use the sheet pan. If you have lots of water in your sheet pan, you want to get rid of that at some point in the cooking process. This broccoli was also cut into giant florets, and I want bite-sized pieces in my final meal, so I cut them into smaller florets and return them to the air fryer to continue cooking. This broccoli should only need another 3 to 5 minutes in the air fryer, and then it will be done and ready to go. Okay, now that that's been tended to, back to the chimichurri. Get out your food processor, place on the bowl, and then add to the bowl all those vegetables we cut up earlier, the cilantro, the parsley, the garlic, and the shallot. We're also going to add 1 tablespoon or 3 grams of oregano and 1/4 of a cup or 60 grams of red wine vinegar. Add a pinch or 2 of salt to your liking, place on the lid, and start processing this down. As it's going, you can slowly drizzle in 3 tablespoons or 45 grams of olive oil. Every so often, pull off the lid and scrape down the sides, and if you find that your chimichurri is not very sauce-like, add water to get it to the right consistency. I ended up adding about 3 tablespoons or 45 grams of water to mine. This is something you may have to do by feel. You can always add more of the cilantro or the parsley if you feel it needs it as well. Since the cilantro and parsley are leafy greens, this meal, for all intents and purposes, counts as a salad. Once everything is all blended together and the right consistency, you can divide it out into 5 smaller containers to go into each separate meal prep dish. The last thing to cook is the meat. To a large skillet over medium-high heat, add 1/2 of a tablespoon or 7.5 grams of oil, and then 2 pounds or 908 grams of the ground meat of your choice. I used 96.4 ground chicken because that's what I had in the house from the other week when I made all of the ground chicken in my food processor. If you want to know how to do this, I'll put a link on the screen now. When I originally developed this recipe, I wrote it to use 93.7 ground turkey, but any kind of ground meat that you want to use will work just fine. Give the meat some time to brown and then flip it over and continue cooking on the other side. Look, this induction cooktop that I use is a real piece of junk and I hate it. The surface area of the cooking element is like the size of a penny, and I can never get good optimal browning on all the meat. Some of you have asked me why I prefer using it to cook, and the answer is I don't. I hate it, but in order to film these videos, I have to use it. Now we can assemble everything together. Grab your potatoes and your rice and add it all to the pot with the meat. Stir in the potatoes, add 2 cups or 300 grams of cooked rice, and then add all of your broccoli as well. Stir everything up so that it's evenly distributed, and then season with salt and pepper to taste. Now I only season with salt and pepper because the chimichurri packs tons of flavor and I love the taste of it, so I want it to be the star of the dish. You're a grown-up, you have free will. If you want to add more seasonings, you can do so. This recipe makes 5 servings, so get out 5 meal prep containers and divide the contents of the pan evenly 5 ways. I know you guys that have been watching for a while are probably getting sick of me saying this, but because there are new people that watch every week, I have to continue saying it every video. It does not matter if each container has a slightly different amount of food in it. As long as you eat all the meals by the end of the week, the calorie and macronutrient counts will even out to be the same. Eyeballing the portions is perfectly fine. It's not that hard to get them close to even, but if you wanted to get out a scale and weigh and measure everything so it's exact, nobody's going to stop you. Each of these dishes has about 494 calories and 40 grams of protein with the 96.4 ground chicken. If you wanted to use the 93.7 ground turkey, it's 542 calories and 38 grams of protein. Once the meals have had time to cool, you can throw on the lids and move them into your refrigerator where they will last up to 5 days. To reheat these, I just use the microwave. Pull one out of the fridge, take off the lid, and remove that container that holds the chimichurri. Then I put it in the microwave and stir in 1-minute intervals until it is hot. For the chimichurri, you can mix it in, you can dab it on top, whatever works for you. Just stir it up first to make sure that any of the oil and vinegar that may have been separated have been recombined. I love including sauces like this in my meal prep dishes because it adds a layer of freshness that can really bring to life what is essentially glorified leftovers. I also find that having contrasting temperatures between the cold chimichurri and hot food can trick my mind into believing that the food was freshly cooked. If you have never had chimichurri before, you have got to try it. In its classic form, and in my opinion its best form, it is served on top of freshly grilled meat, but I love it with sweet potatoes as well. Something about the sweetness from the potatoes and the tanginess from the chimichurri just matches so perfectly well together. As I stated earlier, any kind of ground meat will work in this recipe, but if you want the most flavor as possible, use beef. It will be magical. Down in the description of this video, you can find a link to my website where the written version of this recipe lives. Go and find it there, and if you decide to give this one a go, take a picture and send it to me on Instagram @themealprepmanual. That's it for this week. See you next time.